Good day everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on LS replenishment. My name is Kerem Karan, I'm a functional consultant here at LS Retail. Before we get started, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions today by typing questions into the question pane in this webinar. You can send your questions in at any time during the presentation. I'll do my best to address these in a Q&A session we'll have at the end of today's webinar, or if I don't get to them, I'll send them with answers after this webinar. So today we'll be touching on several replenishment concepts in the LS Central solution. We'll be looking at options and solutions for different replenishment types. We will demonstrate different replenishment rules and calculation methods. We will create transfer and purchase order recommendations with the use of automatic replenishment and use manual replenishment options like buys, push and allocation plans. Plus also, we'll see some other options that are available. What is replenishment? Well, the dictionary meaning of replenishment is the act of filling something up again by replacing what has been used. In LS Central, this would mean replacing items that have been sold. We do this via purchase orders. It's nothing new and retailers have been doing this for years. But it is an important thing to do right, as if you do not have items, or if you have too many items, it will reduce your profits. Why is a good replenishment system important? Studies show us that 43% of consumers, when faced with a store being out of stock of an item, will go to another store to buy the same item, and also up to 25% of consumers will continue shopping in the store, but not substitute that item for another purchase. 72% of these stockouts are due to in-store ordering and replenishment practices. In other words, ordering too little or ordering too late. So if we think about that dictionary meaning again, replenishment is the act of filling something up again by replacing what has been used. We probably need to add to that definition for retail. Replenishment is not only the act of filling something up, but predicting what we will need ahead of time. If I have 100 items and I need to order every 30 days, how many do I need? This isn't enough information, is it? But if you were to do a manual order with a pen and paper in your store, this is all the information you'll have. Therefore, 72% of stockouts being due to in-store practices, well, I can put this down to being or the store not having the information it needs to do the job correctly. This is where LS Central can help. By using data in different ways, we can suggest an order for you. Not only this is quicker than pen and paper, it's also more precise and easier. Alright, so here's our solution. One of the ways we can do replenishment is via stock levels. This is perhaps the oldest ways in which stores would traditionally handle the replenishment process. You would have a minimum order level that you wouldn't let a product fall below, and a maximum level that you would build to. We'll go to retail items and have a look. So, motorcycle sunglasses will be the first one today. Alright. In all of these, we'll be looking at replenishment control data. This is where we set up the parameters on how we're going to replenish an item. So, for this item, I see that I have a reorder point of 200 and I have a maximum inventory of 500. I also have transfer multiple of 1 and an order multiple of 1. So this means that I can transfer it between my stores in units of 1 and I can order it in units of 1. Say a vendor would send you a product that's in a box of 20. Perhaps your order multiple will be 20 because I can only buy it in a box of 20. However, I can transfer it between my stores in singles. If we have a look at the side on the fact box, more information, purchase order delivery, we can see that this is to store. Our other option here is maybe to a warehouse, depending on how you want to order it, and the vendor which you will be purchasing it from. I've got a fact box here as well. Our first one here, item store records. This is where I can even define with per location, maybe some different replenishment methods. So depending, maybe this store needs to order more and another store needs to order less. I can set up that via these records here, if required. Item quantities. This is where the calculation for replenishment gets its numbers from. So we can click into here and have a look at what it says. And what it's showing us is by location, the inventory level, and some other information. We only care about the inventory level right now. So I can see that I have, for this location, for this item, 100. I can see that my reorder point is 200. My maximum inventory is 500. So we should run a replenishment on this, although let's just talk about it before we do it. I have 100 on hand. I've gone below my 200, so I need to order it, but I need to bring it up to 500. What do you think the outcome will be? If I go into automatic replenishment here and replenishment templates, Here's a whole bunch of replenishment templates, and this is where we set up the parameters for automatic replenishment. I've set a few up for today's example, and I'll be using the stock level one initially. So we go into that. And I'm presented with an empty replenishment template. There are rules I've created, which items and which stores and which days they run, that determine what should be included in this template. I'm not going to go into details, so they're just all set up ready to go. If I add items to the journal, I can quickly see an overview of what I've got here. So I am only ordering for this one item. I'm using any of these replenishment calculation types, but we can narrow it down. But I could do it for a division or an item category, a vendor, a season, any sort of filter on the item, and I can group by stores or some other filters and bits and pieces here. So completely configurable. But this is what I'm going to run right now, so I'm just going to press OK. And it's added some lines into the journal. Sorry, it's added a line into the journal. So it has added quantity 400. Remember I said earlier I had 100 on hand? Well, it shows me that my store effective inventory is 100. How many does it want? Well, it wants to bring me back up to 500. How it's done that is ordered me 400. I can scroll across and see some more information as well. So if I scroll across, I can see things like costs, prices, sales amount, profit. I mean, this is useful information, but this becomes very useful when we're talking about transfers later on. But just know it's here. After I have this information, what do I do with it? Well, I'd probably create a purchase order. So we'll create a purchase order. Do I want to create it? Purchase order has been created. Okay, let's have a look at what has actually been done in the system. So I've navigated back to the role center, and I can see a tile here, replenishment purchase orders to send. And it has a 1 next to it now. That's the one that I've just created. Now, just worth noting at this point, as with all examples I'm showing you, I'm going to be going into the journal and manually creating it. Although you can do this, I probably recommend not doing it. The system can do this for you. The system can create the replenishment template. So the system can automatically run the replenishment templates, insert the lines in there, and create the purchase orders. So you as a replenishment user would open up your Business Central, and you would just come to this role center, and you would see what you need to do here. You don't need to go into the journals and have a look at them, although we are going to do it today. So just remember that. All right, I'm going to click onto this. So let's see what this does. All right, we have a list of replenishment orders. And as a user, this is what you want to do. At the beginning of the day, you'll be presented with everything that's run, and you'll probably want to review these orders before doing something with them. All right, here's your purchase order to a vendor for a day, for a location. We can see it's been created by a replen source code. This is how we know that a replenishment template has created this, and all the items that it wants to order. And here's that line, 400. So you can choose to do something with it. You can release this order, you can add items to it, you can remove items to it, you can modify quantities, whatever you want to do. But this is the review stage. So you would review this and you would release it. And that would be your job. Done. Okay, look, let's get a little bit smarter with this now. We'll go back into items and we'll have a look at the Air Aviator sunglasses. And again, going into replenishment control data. So this looks slightly different to what we saw before. There's a little bit more information on there. Let's talk about what's the same. We still have a reorder point. We still have a maximum inventory. We still got a purchase order delivery to store. We're still specifying which vendor number we want to get it from. We're still specifying our transfer and order multiple. None of this has changed. We do have some more information on the side here. We've got a manual estimated daily sale. We've got 20 in here. We've got store stock cover days of 7. We also have, which is from before, item store records if we want to get down to the store specific reorder levels. We've got item quantities, which I'll click on, which shows the same information again. For this location, I've got 100 again of this, but it shows me all my locations here. Cool, I've got 100, let's go back. So we've talked about what's the same, we've talked about what's different. So let's put this all together. What we're saying to the system is, we're telling the system we estimate that we're selling 20 of these items every day. When I run a replenishment template, I need to ensure that the system has enough stock to cover me for 7 days. 7 times 20 is 140. So when I'm running this, I'm going to estimate for these 7 days that I'm going to need 140. However, we saw with item quantities, we'd already have 100 on hand. I'd assume then, we run this replenishment template, I should have 40. Well, let's have a look if that's what happens. So we'll go back to automatic replenishment templates. This time I'm going to run the second one here, manual estimate. Sorry, I've already run it. And as I said, or as we just talked about, we're ordering 40 of these. But let's have a look under the hood of the calculation, because the system will allow you to have a look. So I'm going to go navigate, lines, and we're going to look at calculation log lines. So calculation log line, it's similar when you did a mathematics exam. You couldn't just give the answer, you needed to show you're working out. This is LS Central showing the working out. So the important one is the one I've got highlighted here. The system suggested quantity is 40. What is this? It's daily sales of 20 multiplied by the store stock cover days of 7. What is that? That was that 140 we talked about. We're going to multiply it by a forecast. We'll forget about that. We'll talk about that later on. And we minus our effective inventory of 100. So 140 minus 100 equals 40. And that's in our template. We'll go back to the role center. Now this is good, or at least it's better. We're starting to use more of the system to make some judgments. We're actually taking into consideration our inventory levels. Although we're not really considering sales, we're estimating them. I mean, this could be good for new implementations where there isn't a sales history available. But again, the downfall is the numbers will only change if the user goes into the item and changes them. So if you run out of stock, it could be because you're underestimating your daily sales. You'll need to increase the number. Alternatively, if you have too much stock, you're overestimating your daily sales and you may need to bring that number down. Let's make this better. I'm going to have a look at square frame now, square frame sunglasses. And this time, we're going to utilize a different replenishment method. So back to replenishment control data. Again, the screen looks similar, but there's a few more fields. So the replenishment calculation type we're using this time is average usage. So what we're going to do is actually have a look at sales that have been posted into the item ledger to make a determination of how much we're actually selling. We're not going to guess it like a manual entry like we did before. We're going to use the system to figure out the sales. So what's the same on this one? Again, I have a reorder point. I have a maximum inventory level. I'm not using them, but I've got them. I'm saying that the purchase order delivery is to store. Could be to a warehouse, but this one's to store. Where we're getting this from, what vendor number, transfer, and order multiples. I still have store stock cover days, although I've lost the record of manual entry. And I've got some more information which we'll talk about later. Item store records I still have, item quantities I still have. Let's go and have a look at the item quantity. So again, I've got my item quantities per location for store 1. I've got an inventory level of 10. Some more information here this time, so I'm just going to scroll across and have a look at this screen. And here we've got a column, daily sales. So this is actually showing us that we're selling, on average, 18 a day. This isn't a manual number. This is actually from the system calculating what I've sold or what I've posted each day for a period of time. So what's different on this screen? Well, I have a replenishment sales profile. So what does this do? It defines how many days of sales I need to look at to get to a daily average. The code here sort of gives it away at 5 weeks. So what I'm looking at is the 5 previous weeks, how many I've sold, dividing it by the amount of days I've got. So I don't know what those numbers are, but I know the answer they come out to is 18 a day. So on average, I've been selling 18 a day for the last 5 weeks. I've also got 4 different types of effective inventory. So I've got effective inventory sales order, effective inventory purchase order, effective inventory transfer inbound, and transfer outbound. What that's doing is when I'm looking at what my effective inventory is in store, I should take into consideration any sales or purchase orders or transfers that are coming in or out of the system. Why would I do this? Well, we see that I have 10 on hand now, but if I have a purchase order or a transfer of 100 due into the store, well, I don't need to order that 100. They're already on their way, so I should take this number into consideration when placing my purchase order. All right, let's have a look at what we've got here. I know I have 10 on hand. I know that I'm selling 18 a day. I still need 7 days stock. So let's look. 7 days stock times 18 is 126, but I have 10 on hand. so I probably should be ordering 116. Let's have a look if that's what happens. We'll go back. Automatic replenishment. Replenishment templates. I'm going to use average usage this time. And there it is, 116. But let's have a look at our working out to see if that's what or how it's come to that answer, because that's the important thing. So we'll look at the calculation logline. So the system has suggested 116, as we've seen. Daily sales, 18, times 7 to get to the 126. But I have 10 on hand, so I'm subtracting, which is 116. Exactly what we would hope. So now we are using actual sales gathered by the system and actual sales in the system that have been posted to the item ledger, and then we're using the system inventory levels. This is good. This is much, much more accurate than a pen and paper solution that we talked about. For this to work, and for it to work effectively as a store owner, you only need to do a couple of things, or 4 things actually. You need to record your sales accurately. Your point of sale will do this for you. You need to record your purchases and transfers accurately. Well, by generating replenishment orders and transfer orders, the system is doing this for you as well. So, as a store owner, you only have to do some exceptions. You need to account for damaged or wasted stock or stolen stock by doing negative adjustments or positive adjustments. Also, you probably should do some regular stock counting to make sure that you haven't made some invoicing errors. Once you've got all this and the system's up and running, it takes care of itself. So this is good. This is really good, but it can be better. So let's consider this last order I just did. I ordered 116 because that's what I needed to get me through for 7 days. Well, what happens if the day is sunny? What happens if I sell more? What happens if the delivery truck breaks down? Also, some considerations I need to make is how many items do I need in my shop to make my shop look like it's got enough stock to keep selling? Like for that item, I am selling 18 a day. If I've only got 1 on the shelf before the next order arrives, do I really look like a store that is selling lots of these items? Maybe not. So let's tweak this a little bit. So we'll go into this item and go into replenishment control data. So let's look at the reorder point. I've left these at 0 for now, but we can change this number. So let me change this to 150. Okay, what will this do? Well, it tells the system that at the end of the 7 days that I should have at least 150 on hand. Okay. Let's rerun the order and see what happens. Automatic replenishment, replenishment template, average usage. All right, we can see the old journal of 116. Well, let's rerun this. So we're going to add items to journal and redo it. All right, so the order is for 140. Why? Well, it even shows us that it only wants to order 116. We have a minimum level of 150, but we have 10 on hand. So we can see the store effective inventory of 10. So to get to 150, we just need to order 140 more. So in this situation, we're sort of using a hybrid of the stock level approach that we had in the first example and average sales. Depending on which number is higher is the method that it will use. Let's go and have a look at the working out. So if we look down to the last line here, yes, we can see that the system suggested 116 with the mathematics we've had used before, but the decision was brought to bring it back up to the reorder point of 140, which was the reorder point of 150 by 110, minus 110, because this number would have been higher than the 116. It will order the higher of the two numbers. So we've said that the minimum level we want is 140, and we're going to get that. So this is good now. We're using sales and inventory. We're predicting stock requirements by using a period of sales that have already occurred. But what if we know that sales in the future will be different to the past? Retail stores will often run promotional activities for the sole purpose of driving up sales, so we know beforehand that the sales next week will be different to the sales last week. Well, can we consider that when we're running automatic replenishment? And the answer is yes. So if we go to automatic replenishment, we're going to look at a replenishment planned event. So a planned event is anything which you will suspect change your sales through the store. So it can be something where you're just doing an ad hoc plan. This is a manual source where you're just saying it's going to go up by 25% for whatever reason. It can be tied to retail budgets, or it can be tied to promotional activity, and that's the one we're going to look at right now. So we're going to have a look at glasses promotion, which is a discount offer. We'll go into the discount offer and have a look at that. This item here, the square frame sunglasses, normally sells for $20 each. However, for this period of time, we're going to run a discount offer on this of 50% off. So I'm putting a planned demand type in here of an additional percentage boost of 50%. This could be a quantity boost, but at this stage I'm saying that, or what I'm saying is, because this is on promotion, I'm expecting an additional 50% demand for the period of time that this is on promotion. So I will enable this boost and rerun our template. Add items to the journal, rerun the calculation. The quantity is 179. Why does it pick this number? It's average usage. Let's go and have a look at the working out. So we have a look at the line above what's highlighted here. The system suggested quantity 116. The mathematics is the same. The planned sales demand found in the coverage period, which is when the promotion's running, has adjusted it from 116 to 179. So if we have a look at what's happening here, we are selling 18 a day for 7 days, but I've said to the system that I'm going to have an extra 50% boost for those 7 days. So it's not 18. What's 18 plus 50%? 27. 27 times 7 for the 7 days is 189, but I have 10 on hand. So I'm going to bring it down to from 189 down to 179 because I have the 10 on hand. So it's ordered 179 because I'm expecting a 50% increase in my demand for the period that I'm doing the order for. So now we have used our inventory levels with average sales, and we predicted future sales because of a promotional activity that's happening to manipulate the number that we're doing the average sale calculation. This is getting really, really good now, but LS Central can be even more powerful. So imagine this, a store which sells sunglasses. You'd hypothesize that in summer, you would have high sales in winter. Sunglasses should sell when there's more sun, I'd assume. So what if we could take seasonal trends into consideration? Well, we can with this. So let's go have a look. I'm going to go into retail items again. Back into the item. Replenishment control data. All right. What I'm going to look at is under the replenishment sales profile, I've got a store forward sales profile. So if we click on that, what this will do is we can assign a forward sales profile to the item. Well, what's this? Well, a forward sales profile will compare sales from a previous time and see if there was a change in rate of sale previous to that time or after that. So an example is, say a year ago, if I wanted to compare 10 weeks previous to the next 10 weeks for this time last year. For the 10 weeks previous, this time last year, I sold 90. For the next 10 weeks from this time last year, I sold 100. So what we're going to say is that we've had a change in sales. My average sales were 90, then going to 100, so we've had an increase of 10%. Okay. Perhaps this is because coming in the summer and we expect to see the sales increase. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to include this factor when we're doing our replenishment order. Let's see this in action. So I will pick the 1 year one. Go back, automatic replenishment, and rerun the average usage again. So we're back to this order again. Remember 116, which is the 126 minus 10. Let's run the journal again and see what happens. 153. Okay, let's have a look at why. All right, So we have some additional lines here which are called forward factor. Now if I highlight over this, I won't move my mouse. What the forward factor is, it's looking at, well, this one here, we can see it's looking at previous 29 days. And it's saying that I sold 90. Afterwards, previous I sold 70. So what I had was a 28.5% increase in sales. So you can see the factor it's showing here is a factor of 1.857. Yep. 1.28571. 28% increase in sales. We'll read that like that. So if you've had a decrease in sales, that number will be below 1. Increase in sales above 1. So what it's going to do is we're going to have a look at, again, 18 times 7. Now we're going to multiply that by the percentage we think the sales will increase or decrease in. So we're putting in last year's trend or last period's trend into this. And then we're minusing our effective inventory, obviously 10. And that's how it gets to 153. So now with replenishment, we're considering the actual inventory. We're making a calculation based on recent sales. We're taking into consideration promotional activities and other planned events. We can also take in the seasonality of a store into consideration. This is a very powerful way of replenishing. So let us make it simple. So what we've done is great, but I guess you can imagine that if you've got tens of thousands of items in your store, that's a lot of setup to do per item. Well, LS Central makes this easy to manage by using a function or using replenishment control data or replenishment data profiles. I'll go to replenishment control data, replenishment data profile, and here's one I've created for glasses. So you'll have a look here, what we've done, and you'll see that a lot of these fields look like what we just saw on the item. So this is a way where we can create a replenishment profile once, and we can assign it to many items. Let's have a look at what's here. Again, we've got the effective inventory, which we've seen before, so we're going to include any sales or purchase orders into this. We're going to be using average usage as our calculation type, so you can use any type of replenishment calculation in these data profiles. We are going to have the reorder point. We're going to leave them at 0, max 0, but again, you can put those in there if you need to. The purchase orders are coming to store. We left the vendor blank, so it's going to use the default one, but we can assign one here. Got transfer and purchase order multiples. Store stock cover days of 7. Replenishment sales profile, again 5 weeks. We haven't put the forward sales profile on this one because I want to see something different happen to the item. Alright, so we've created this. So you would do this, maybe because all the items in your store or a category of items in your store would all be replenished the same. So let's think of glasses in this instance. They probably all come from a similar vendor. Sorry about that. And they require the same, or they could have the same parameters for ordering. So we could assign this to all our glasses. Let's go and have a look at that. So retail items. Go back into this item. So we're in the item card. Let us scroll down. And under the replenishment calculation type, it's currently average usage. But this is where I can assign what type of replenishment I'm going to use. So you can see the manual estimate stock levels and average usage that we've looked at. But what we're going to do is we're going to do automatic from data profile. All right. And now we're going to go into replenishment control data again on this item. So we don't see much here because this is all controlled from the replenishment data profile. All we can really do here is assign the data profile to it. Yes, we can see the item store records, so we can have a different record per store if we wanted to. And we can have a look at the quantities again if we want to. But this is all the setup we need to do here. So let's go back. And let's rerun this item again. All right, run average usage, add items to journal, and bang, we're back to 116. So the replen data profile didn't have the forward sales profile on it, so we brought the number back to our original calculation of 116. So we've assigned that to an item, but we could assign that to multiple items. So this means if it was required to change any parameter for these glasses profile that we created, so let's think of the store stock cover days, it was at 7. But imagine we had to change that to 14 because the vendor would only supplies fortnightly. Well, I would only need to change it in one location. It's much easier, but it still requires us to set it up on each item. So let's make that even easier again. We'll go into administration, item, and we'll have a look at division. Alright, so in our division setup, we can assign all items that are created in that division with the same data profile. And just pick one from here. But also, if we go, we can do it by item categories or retail product groups. I'll go into retail product groups. So yeah, you can do it at any level you want to, but I think it makes more sense doing it at the retail product group, although your business could be different. So you would find your category that matches your sunglasses, and you would set your replen data profile to it. Now, this means any item that's being created will have a look at this setup and assign this data profile to the item automatically. I don't need to set it to the item, it's being set automatically. So this is made easier. Now, there is another replenishment option we can use. So in the previous ones, we've looked at sales, or we've looked at average sales, but maybe this isn't suitable. So there's another way we can look at previous sales, and that's the method of like for like. So look at our mounted sunglasses this time, and replenishment control data. So this time we're going to use like for like. What does this mean? Well, the simple way of putting it is, if I sell one, then I should order one. It looks at sales that are posted, puts those sales into a journal that will get converted into an order whenever replenishments run. So my only real option here is my transfer and order multiples. Again, I've got item store records, I've got item quantities, and if I want to have a look at what will be ordered, I can have a look at my planned stock demand. So this is where my posted sales will go. So I'm going to have a look there, but no, actually I'm going to look somewhere else. So I am going to look at posted statements for this. Store management, end of day, posted statements. All right, so I've got one statement in here posted. And if I go into the transaction, all right, so I can see that I've sold one line here and I've sold 15 of them. So I have, when I posted this statement, put a stock request into the system for 15 to be created whenever replenishment runs for this item. Let's go and have a look at that in action. So a like-for-like replenishment here, a blank journal. Let's add items to it. All right. There we go. So we can see that it's ordered 15. We can see that the calculation type is a planned stock demand. So the 15 I sold created a stock demand on the item. Now this is a very useful method for selling erratically sold items that are of high value. You would set an initial stock level in your store, and only when that item sells would you replenish it. Consider your store sold fridges, and you would keep, say, 4 fridges in stock. These sold very infrequently, but were high value. You might go multiple weeks without selling one of them, and then all of a sudden sell 3 of them. This can make average usage unpredictable. You might overstock or understock the item. I mean, you could make average usage work by using reorder points for maximum and minimum inventories, but this would be labor intensive in its setup. But if I order the stock into the store and create that stock level, so say 4 for that fridge, then I only ever reorder what I sell. So all of the above methods of purchase orders are created by the store based on demand. So let's consider the term a pull order. The store is pulling the stock from a vendor based on the demand created from the store. Now, of course, the store can do this order by ordering from a central warehouse and create the pull from the central warehouse. Then the central warehouse would create the order to replenish its stock levels from its vendor. Still, it's a pull. A pull is a location-based order. So we're just getting items from a location and we're requesting what these items are. So consider like for like we just ran. It made the assumption we already had stock in our store and we had the bill back to that same level. It's the same as average sales. It makes the assumption that I have some sales to go on. But what happens when this isn't the case? Well, let's talk about manual replenishment. Sometimes there's a central buying team and they will meet with a vendor, and the vendor will propose that sunglasses have been doing real well, and in fact we've got this new one you might want to try. There might be a new range of sunglasses the vendor will think will sell really well in your stores, and you should range them. There has never been a sale for this product in your system. There's no demand for the store to create any replenishment order. In this case, it will be necessary to create some sort of push order potentially, as opposed to what we talked about as being a pull order. That is, the stock will be pushed into the store by a central buyer. Now we can do this by an allocation plan. So, allocation plan, and here's one I created earlier for my sunglasses. So, an allocation plan. With an allocation plan, we can create orders for items and have them distributed to stores from a central location, and we can use a plan ratio for doing that. Let's talk about that then. So, here's one I created earlier, but an allocation plan can be defined, meaning that I will state how much each store or group of stores will get, or it can be distributed, meaning that I would order, say, one number of 1,000 of an item, and the system would work out how to distribute that amongst the stores. So in this example here, I've created distribution allocation, meaning that I will say to the system how much I want to order, in this case 1,000, and how I want that to be distributed to the stores. The system will work that out. Well, for that to happen, we first need to define an allocation rule. So this is the who and the how. The who gets how many of what. Let's have a look at this. So I've created an allocation rule here. What it has is it's got potentially store groups in there. So what I'm saying is that in this allocation rule, I want to include store group fashion, all my fashion stores. I want to include store group supermarket, which is all my supermarket stores. But I've also gone store specific. So a specific store of home furniture, a specific store of electronics, and a specific fashion store. Interesting. But I've ticked exclude. So what does that mean? All of my fashion stores excluding this fashion store. Okay. Now, that defines the locations that will get distributed to with my allocation. But how much will they get? Well, what we do is we use weightings. So weighting can be any number. You type a number in here, and what it does is it converts it to a percentage. So I've typed in these numbers and they equal whatever they equal, but it's divided these back down into a percentage of 100. So 72% of my allocation should go to my supermarket stores. How many other stores there are in there? 19% will go to the fashion stores. Now this can be any number, so you could plug in last year's sales or last 5 years' sales, it doesn't matter. However, if you want to get even more complicated with this, you can create a calculation rule. What this does is uses the system sales to go, well, this category of product or this store or however you want to break it down has sold this much, and then create an allocation weighting based on how much it sold. But I'm going to keep it nice and simple and just use these plain numbers. So what else have we got here? We've got the warehouse location. This is important. This is where the stock will this is the location that the purchase order will be raised for. So all my stock, my warehouse will raise a purchase order and the stock will get delivered to this warehouse. Warehouse buffer. Now, a warehouse buffer is used, so this could be the first time I've ever ordered this product into my stores. And I'm going to distribute them out to my stores, although I'm not really sure how well they're going to sell. So I'm not going to overload my stores with them, but I'm going to keep some in my central warehouse and distribute them out as they need to later on. Allocation rule we've looked at. And down here on the line, I've got all my items, which I can put here. And the quantity distributes 1,000. So I've typed in 1,000 here. It's taken into consideration that I wanted the buffer of 25%. So my buffer quantity is 250 to make my total quantity 1,250. I'm ordering 1,250 from my supplier. Okay, but who's getting what? Well, that's a great question. So let's have a look at my number of destinations. Ordering 1,250, it's getting distributed among 6 destinations. These destinations have come from my allocation rule. Let's click and have a look. These are my locations: Store 1, Store 2, Store 50, Store 3, Store 7, Store 9. How many are they getting? Well, here's the numbers. 395, 329, 197, 79. The other two aren't getting any. Alright, this is based on the percentage of the share and how it's broken up the percentage of the shares. Now there's 2 stores that get none. I think one of them was excluded and one of them had 0% or something like that. But I can change these numbers. So the quantity calculator is what the system said. However, I can change these if I want to round up or round down or change something. But I'm not going to. So we'll close this. So from here, it's as simple as typing a number in here. I can look at this and then create my purchase and sales orders. So this one function will create the purchase order for my warehouse location, and then it will also create 6 transfer orders from my warehouse location to the stores, all in one function. All right, that's good. But let's consider another scenario. I've bought an investment stock of Christmas products, but I brought this in April because I could get a very, very good price on this, and I've stored them away in my warehouse. Now, my stores thought I would have gone a little bit crazy if I'd sent them Christmas stock in April, but I got such a good price that I went ahead and purchased it anyway. So I've purchased this stock into my warehouse, and it's just been sitting there, but now it's November, and it's now time to send this stock to my stores. So I can do this via a buyer's push. And I've created a class 1 for buyer's push. So a buyer's push is very similar to an allocation. An allocation typically is a central purchase to a warehouse, then as we've seen, multiple transfers from that warehouse to the store locations. A buyer's push is just the multiple transfers part. We don't need the initial purchase order, we already have our stock in our warehouse. It's just redistributing the warehouse stock and pushing it to the stores. We pick the warehouse location, which is our main warehouse location. We pick the default percentage to distribute. So I might have 1,000 in my warehouse. I'm going to choose to push only 50% of that out to stores and keep 50% for later. I would then add my allocation rule again, so which stores and how much they get of each, and add my lines in there. So same allocation rules, so it's the same 6 stores. I have 1,000. Because I have 1,000 and I want to distribute 50% of it, I'm actually only distributing 500. Now let's see how much each store gets. Here again, how it's distributed that 500 based on weightings, and again, yes, I can change these. So this is good. So this is actually speaking of redistribution, let's go to the next point. Imagine you have a number of retail locations, okay? In a perfect world, you would order this seasonal Christmas stock, for example, and every location would sell through, exactly as we've seen, the number of destinations 6, would sell through the predicted amount in the predicted time based on what you've allocated. Brilliant. Guarantee this will never happen, however. It's inevitable that you're going to face an overstocking in one location and understock in another location. So, instead of the location that's run out of stock, ordering it from the vendor, and the other one that has way too much of the stock, heavily discounting the same product, wouldn't it be great if the system worked out and transferred and then balanced out all your locations so you wouldn't have to order more and didn't need to create discounts in some locations and not others? LS Central Store Stock Redistribution is available for you to resolve this. you can create a matrix of stores and warehouses that can transfer automatically amongst themselves, and you can assign a cost and distance to them. Let's have a quick look at the matrix. In redistribution, item matrix. So we'll look at the first one here. So what this is just a simple matrix of location on location, and we're looking at redistribution costs. So what we're saying here, a transfer from store 1 to store 2 is going to cost me $240. To store 3 is the same, it's cheaper than store 4. You can go and create this, but there are also more options. So you can use like a Bing API, for instance, to work out distances by route direct, or by route on the road, or by duration. So however you want to do it. So there's rules on, you can create rules on how you want things to be distributed. Let's see one of these in action. All right, so there are different ways for the system to classify what stock to move from A to B. I mean, and it's quite complicated. I'll give you the very, very basic explanation. The overall concept is item A will have stock in one or more locations. It'll also have sales in all of these locations. The system will calculate if the location has an overstock or an understock, and it'll do this based on sales versus stock. If a location has too much stock, it's classified as a supply location. It has stock, and it has stock to give to other locations. Now, if another location doesn't have enough stock, it's classified as a demand location. The system will, based on what is cheapest or shortest or least transfers, or however you define it, work out how to move the supply location to the demand locations, and will create transfers automatically. Let's have a look at the sales demand one. All right, the aim here is to purchase less, but rather use a combined inventory of all your stores to maximize profit. This is especially relevant for seasonal lines like our Christmas stock we've been talking about, to ensure that there aren't heavy discounts in some locations while other stores are sitting with stock or sitting with no stock. So we can see some information here, and we've got like the number of planned trips. We'll click down here. So the number of planned trips is the from location where the transfer order is coming from. So we can see here quite quickly, it looks like store 2 is overstocked. It's creating transfers of stocks out to 1, out to 3, out to 13. Also the warehouse has some stock. So we've got stock going from the warehouse. We've got stock going there. We've actually got 6 transfers happening. And each one of these lines tells us a bit of information. So maybe the most important thing it's telling us here is the redistribution costs. So I'm doing these transfers, and I am using the redistribution cost method. So it's going to cost us $240 to put this onto a truck. Okay. How much am I putting on there? I'm putting one item onto this truck. The cost amount for that item is, if I sell it at full price, what I'm selling it for, and my profit amount. And we can see that for all my transfers. Now, it's very easy to see that it's costing me $240 to make $44 worth of profit. In this situation, it may not make much sense to actually go ahead with this transfer. It is only one. All right. So you can go and make these decisions, or you can use thresholds and put thresholds in place. So it won't allow these trips to occur unless it comes across some sort of threshold. So you could say, unless I'm going to make $500 or $300, it's not worthwhile creating a transfer between stores. So if we go back or close this, it would still create the transfer line as we saw before, but it would put them into the exception list. Now you can choose to accept the exception or get rid of it. This is up to you to make the decision. We can also see the preview of the redistribution. So again, it's showing us all the lines that are in there and gives us some information of how much percentage of stock I've got, the expected sell through, what my inventory is, how much I'm going to get, how much I'm moving around, that kind of information. So to wrap up what we talked about today, we looked at simple replenishment by using different methods like stock levels, manual estimate, average usage, like for like. We then used events like promotions to increase replenishment to help us prevent out of stocks. And then we used previous sale trends to predict future requirements via the forward sales profiles. We then looked at manual replenishment types like allocations and buyers push to help central merchandise officers push stock in the stores. And we took a quick look at stock redistribution and how to balance stock out between a number of locations. In all these, we've only really brushed the surface on the power of LS Central and the capabilities it has in replenishment. LS Academy offers an in-depth training course that goes into the specifics on these. I think the course is 3 days in length, so as you can see, this 1 hour, we can only really scratch the surface and the solution. But I hope it's given you some insight onto what we've got here at LS Central for replenishment. Yep, so thank you very much.